Full disclosure, I'm not a fan of auto racing watches, but this Depancel Serie R01 is different. Why, you ask? I'll tell you all on this episode of Adventures with Time. Depancel is a French watch brand that launched in 2018, bringing together a love of cars and watches. Since then, they've created several collections that lean into the classic autosport aesthetics. This Serie R01 is reminiscent of the Tag Heuer Monaco chronograph with its iconic square case. Is this Depancel a homage watch? Their website makes no mention of the Monaco, so I'll leave that question to you. That said, comparisons are inevitable among watch enthusiasts. Personally, I prefer to set that aside and evaluate the Serie R01 on its own. I have on loan the blue dial version, paired with a brown racing strap with a tang and buckle. The watch is also available in ivory or green, with options for what Depancel calls either a racing or driving strap in brown or black. The first thing to discuss is the shape. Most of you have probably worn rectangular watches before, maybe a vintage Casio or a modern G-Shock. But the Depancel has a very different aesthetic. While the dial is square, the case itself is rectangular. And with its slightly bowed top and the vertical grooves on the outer dial, it actually reminds me of the Pantheon-style grills on vintage Rolls-Royce cars. At first glance, it looks like a chronograph. Pushers, central chrono second hand, subdials. But take a closer look. That's actually a running central seconds hand. And the lower subdial is a 24-hour indicator. The other two subdials, along with the date window at 4:30, provide a full calendar complication. So, why the pushers? Well, they aren't pushers. They're crown guards. This is essentially an everyday wear watch that masquerades as an autosport chronograph. You'll also notice multiple instances of the blue, white, red French racing stripes. Honestly, most of us don't really need a chronograph, so this design choice actually makes a lot of sense. This is a busy dial, no question. You've got 3 subdials, a date display, and 2 sets of applied indices. One set along the outer dial, trimmed where they meet the case edge. Another set on the matte inner dial, just inside the minute track. I'm not entirely sure why Depancel chose this approach, but I'll say the execution is excellent. Everything precisely aligned. If you've ever worn a square watch or near square watch like this, you might be surprised. A case that's just 36 millimeters wide wears much larger. That's because the corners cover more wrist area. Here are the full specs. Case size 36 wide by 43 millimeters tall. Lug to lug 50 millimeters. Lug width 22 millimeters. And thickness 12.9 millimeters, including the sapphire crystal with AR coating. The mix of brushed and polished surfaces gives the case a lot of sparkle and more wrist presence than you might expect. On the strap, it weighs in at 106 grams. At the 3 o'clock side, the crown guards mimic chronograph pushers. The upper guard actually includes a flush, quick-set button for the month subdial. The crown itself is octagonal, about 5.7 millimeters wide, with what appears to be a red center element. The rotated geometry adds extra grip points. More on that in a moment. This isn't a water-focused watch. With a push-pull crown, it's rated to 50 meters of water resistance. On the case back, there is a mineral crystal display showing the Miyota 9120 movement. This movement runs at 28,800 beats per hour with a 40-hour power reserve. Accuracy from -10 to +30 seconds per day. You can clearly see the balance wheel, train bridge, brass winding gear, and the custom rotor. You might be wondering how to set all those calendar functions. The second crown position provides the usual quick set adjustments for the day and date complications, and the month is set via the small button on the upper crown guard. Simple enough. Now, speaking of complications, you know what isn't simple? These watch theme activity books. If you enjoy watches beyond just wearing them, these are a lot of fun. They're designed for enthusiasts at all levels, beginners to advanced, and are a great way to test and expand your horological knowledge. The Watch Lovers Puzzle Book, more Watch Lovers puzzles, and for a real challenge, the Watch Lovers Rebus Puzzle Book. They're available on Amazon, link in the description. If you'd like to support the channel, picking up one of these is a great way to do that. Or you can use the thanks button below. Always appreciated. Now back to the watch. I mentioned I'd come back to the crown. In practice, I found it a bit difficult to grip in the winding position. Even with the octagonal design, it was hard to get a firm hold. That said, the winding action itself is very smooth, so it doesn't require a lot of effort. Another personal dislike, something regular viewers will recognize, is the 4:30 date window. It's not the position that bothers me, it's the tilted numerals. I understand why they did it. The alternative would produce a much smaller date. You also might expect the day and month indicators in French to be an issue. But in practice, they're easy enough to interpret based on position. And surprisingly, despite not being a fan of racing aesthetics, the blue, white, red stripe works well. It blends nicely with the dial rather than dominating it. But it's still not my preference. So those are my dislikes. Not bad, right? Because overall, I do find this watch appealing. It fits my 7.5-inch wrist well, and even though this loaner has seen some wear, the case finishing still looks excellent. You might expect the busy dial to hurt legibility, but it doesn't. The layout works, and I had no trouble reading the time, even in low light, thanks to the Super Luminova C1. The vertical grooves on the outer dial also help draw your eye towards the center elements. A subtle but effective design choice. And the slightly protruding crystal adds even more presence on the wrist. So don't let that square shape turn you off. After all, millions of people are wearing Apple Watches every day, and this Depancel is a lot more interesting. Now, if you like driving watches, you should also check out this video next. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in my next video.